From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. A 52-year-old Muslim doctor was stabbed outside her apartment complex in Conroe, Texas on Saturday. Dr. Talat Jahan Khan was in the common area of the complex when a person later identified as Miles Joseph Frederick allegedly attacked her, officials said. Several witnesses heard screams and rushed to the scene, whereupon the suspect fled. Law enforcement officials quickly apprehended Frederick based on a witness description. Despite the efforts of emergency responders, Khan could not be revived and was pronounced dead at the scene. The motive for the stabbing remains unclear, but it is feared to be a hate crime. Khan's death has roiled the Muslim and Pakistani communities in the region. Khan had recently moved to Texas from Seattle. She was well respected by patients and neighbors for her kindness and dedication to her profession. She leaves behind a 14-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son. This is the second Muslim-American murder in the U.S. since the latest escalation in the Israel-Palestine conflict began on October 7th. Earlier this month, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was stabbed to death by his landlord.
Breaking news. Bolivia has severed diplomatic relations with Israel, as announced by the government on Tuesday. During a press briefing, Bolivia's Minister of the Presidency, Maria Nela Prada, charged Israel with crimes against humanity and firmly demanded a halt to assaults on the Gaza Strip, citing thousands of civilian deaths and the displacement of Palestinians. This drastic step echoes Bolivia's previous decision to break ties in 2009 following attacks on Gaza, although these ties were restored in 2020 under President Janine Áñez's administration.
Israeli airstrikes struck residential homes in Gaza's Jabalia camp, resulting in at least 50 casualties, mostly from the same family. Gaza's civil defense director reports the camp has been destroyed. Meanwhile, Hamas claims to have attacked Israeli tanks and eliminated an Israeli force. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, at least 8,525 people have died in Gaza since October 7th, including 3,542 children and 2,187 women. Around 2,000 people remain missing, the majority believed to be buried under rubble. Additionally, at least 21,543 people have suffered injuries of various severity. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces fatally shot an elderly man in Tubas city, making him the second Palestinian to be killed in less than an hour. These incidents have added to the growing death toll, with at least 124 Palestinians killed in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which are not ruled by Hamas, since October 7th. As well, Amnesty International has accused Israel of unlawfully using white phosphorus in Lebanon, calling it a potential war crime. Save the Children reports that more children have been killed in Gaza in the past 3 weeks than the total number of yearly child casualties in conflicts worldwide since 2019. According to figures released by Save the Children, a staggering 3,324 children have been killed in Gaza since October 7th, with an additional 36 children losing their lives in the West Bank, which is not ruled by Hamas. Comparatively, data from the UN Secretary General's annual report on children and armed conflict paints a grim picture. In 2022, a total of close to 3,000 children lost their lives across 24 countries, while the figure stood at a little over 2,500 in 2021 and approximately 2,600 in 2020 across 22 countries. The United Nations Children's Fund has revealed that more than 420 children are being killed or injured in Gaza every day. Jason Lee, country director for Save the Children in the occupied Palestinian territory, called the killing of children grave violations of epic proportions. He said a ceasefire is the only way to ensure their safety. Children make up over 40% of the more than 8,000 individuals confirmed to have lost their lives in Gaza. More than 6,000 children have also been injured since the onset of the conflict. The White House has defended Israel against allegations of deliberately targeting civilians in the ongoing conflict in Gaza and occupied Palestine. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby emphasized Israel's actions are not aimed at killing civilians, despite the rising death toll among Palestinians. He responded to comments by Representative Pramila Jayapal, who criticized the U.S. for its perceived double standard in supporting Israeli actions while condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Jayapal said U.S. authority on the moral stage has been greatly diminished. Kirby pushed back, saying Israel is not deliberately trying to kill civilians. He also reiterated the U.S.'s opposition to a humanitarian ceasefire in besieged Gaza, arguing it would primarily benefit Hamas. Canada is now advocating for a humanitarian truce in the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict, 3 days after abstaining from a UN resolution calling for the same. Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly said Monday time is running out. During a speech outlining Canada's foreign policy, she stressed the need for all parties to agree to the truce. The UN General Assembly recently passed a resolution aimed at protecting civilians and upholding legal and humanitarian obligations amid the crisis. Canada, along with Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK, abstained from the vote. Meanwhile, the US and Israel were among the 14 countries that voted against it. Tensions have arisen at McDonald's stores in the Middle East due to the latest escalation of the Israel-Palestine conflict. In Israel, a McDonald's operator has been offering discounts to soldiers and security forces since the Hamas attack on October 7th, sparking controversy. Many franchises in the region distanced themselves from this action, emphasizing their independent ownership. Franchise owners in Kuwait, Pakistan, and other countries issued statements saying they were not joint owners with the Israeli franchise. A majority of McDonald's stores are run by local franchise operators who in many ways act like independent businesses, setting wages and prices and making statements or donations on their own. McDonald's has not commented extensively on the conflict, but says it supports its franchisees. The corporation has made a $1 million donation for humanitarian aid in the region. As of 2022, McDonald's has more than 40,000 locations worldwide, including nearly 27,000 outside the U.S. India's opposition urges truce in Gaza. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. India's main opposition Congress party voiced its objection to the Hindu nationalist government's decision to abstain at the UN General Assembly on the resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. In an article published in The Hindu, Sonia Gandhi, chairperson of the Congress Party's parliamentary party, expressed deep concern about the ongoing crisis. Gandhi said humanity is on trial in Gaza and that everyone must question the collective conscience of the world. She described Israeli actions as indiscriminate, causing immense death and destruction among ordinary Gazans. Gandhi said the relentless blockade enforced by Israel for more than a decade and a half has turned Gaza into an open-air prison. More than 4,000 Japanese scholars and citizens are calling for Japan's government and others to seek peaceful and political resolutions to the Israel-Palestine crisis. They are appealing for an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, and a swift end to the current humanitarian disaster. Their plea underscores the urgency of halting all military attacks on Gaza, lifting the siege, and ensuring uninterrupted supply of water, electricity, food, medicine, and other essentials. They also spoke against the forced displacement of Gaza's population in preparation for war. The FBI is investigating a series of threats targeting Jewish students at Cornell University. Over the weekend, a number of threats emerged on a website not affiliated with the university. It prompted Cornell University President Martha Pollack to address the issue in a letter to the community. The online messages specifically threatened violence against the university's Jewish community. It even pinpointed the location of the Center for Jewish Living, which houses the kosher dining hall. The FBI has urged anyone who encounters suspicious activity to promptly report it to law enforcement. President Joe Biden said in a recent interview with ABC's Mary Bruce that he is closely monitoring the rise in anti-Semitism. Cornell's student population is 22% Jewish. A Jewish anti-Zionist group has expressed solidarity with Palestinians and criticized the actions of the State of Israel. Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss, spokesman for Nature Karta, emphasized Judaism strictly prohibits acts like killing and stealing. He says the values of Judaism are being violated by the Israeli state's actions against Palestinians. Weiss explained the distinction between Judaism and Zionism. He says Zionism falsely presents itself as a representative of Jewish religion. Weiss argues that Zionism and Judaism are fundamentally incompatible, and he condemned the displacement of Palestinians during the establishment of Israel in 1948. According to Weiss, Judaism forbids the establishment of a Jewish state even in any uninhabited area, and he labeled such an endeavor a rebellion against God. He concluded humanity must come together in harmony to serve God, rejecting the Zionist ideology that equates territory with Judaism. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday said Israel would not agree to a ceasefire in Gaza, which it has been bombarding for 3 weeks. He quoted the Bible, saying, "This is a time for war." Speaking to foreign media, Netanyahu said the Bible says, "There is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war, a war for our common future." He said Israel would not agree to cessation of hostilities with Hamas, just as the U.S. did not do so after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the attacks on 9/11. Earlier, Netanyahu invoked the theory of Amalekites, a tribe mentioned in the Torah, to justify his attacks in Gaza. The UK's Home Secretary has referred to pro-Palestine rallies as hate marches. Suella Braverman addressed the impact of the Israel-Palestine conflict on UK communities after an emergency cabinet meeting chaired by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. She said tens of thousands of people are taking to the streets, chanting for the erasure of Israel from the map. Braverman did not differentiate between peaceful protesters and those advocating for Israel's erasure, categorizing all as hate marches. On October 10th, Braverman cautioned police chiefs about displays of Palestinian flags on British streets, suggesting such displays may not be legitimate. The Home Secretary cited examples of protest actions that could constitute public order offenses, including targeting Jewish neighborhoods, displaying pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas symbols. In the past 3 weeks, thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters have marched in London and across the UK, calling for an end to Israel's attacks in Gaza. A global media freedom advocacy group says the killing of Reuters journalist Isam Abdullah near the Israel-Lebanon border was a deliberate act. In its preliminary investigation, Reporters Without Borders suggests strikes on journalists in southern Lebanon were targeted. 2 such attacks occurred in rapid succession from the same direction, the group said. The journalists, who were clearly marked as press with helmets and bulletproof waistcoats, could not be mistaken for fighters or soldiers, but RSF did not directly attribute responsibility to Israel. However, witnesses reported Israeli military helicopters in the vicinity, and the strikes came from the direction of the Israeli border. 6 other journalists were wounded in the same attack, including Al Jazeera cameraperson Eli Brakia and reporter Carmen Juhadar. Israel's military has not acknowledged responsibility for the attacks, but expressed condolences for Abdullah's death and pledged to investigate. There have been a series of recent events involving the targeting of journalists in the region, including the killing of the family of Al Jazeera Arabic's bureau chief in Gaza. The death of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh last year is also attributed to Israeli forces. At least 34 Palestinian journalists have been killed in Israeli air attacks since October 7th. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.